Bone Temple, the sequel to the disappointing 28 Years Later. Some of us were not the biggest fans of that last movie, to say the very least. The question is, can this movie course correct the franchise into the right direction? Something all of the fans will enjoy as a whole? Well, it being a January release honestly does not give us much hope, because January is a notorious dumping ground of absolute horror movie slop. But guess we'll have to wait and see. The Bone Temple picks up right where the last movie left off. We follow Spike as he is captured by that bizarre Jimmy Savile cult at the end of the last movie. The film also continues to follow Ralph Fiennes' character, that weird, unhinged doctor from the last movie. So it's split between following Ralph Fiennes' character and following Spike. First things first, the Jimmy Savile cult stuff. It plays out way better than I expected it to be honest. They are introduced super goofily at the end of the first movie, so I really had, my expectations were on the absolute floor for this storyline going into the Bone Temple. But to my surprise, they handled this much better than I anticipated. Instead of that over-the-top goofiness from the last movie, the Jimmy cult stuff is portrayed pretty straightforward in a horror fashion. These people are pretty unhinged and unsettling at times in various scenes throughout this movie. To all our surprise, the Jimmy cult stuff is genuinely unsettling at times in this movie. Like, they do some absolutely depraved things to innocent people in this movie, and I kind of love it. Like, personally, I'm a huge fan of cult stuff in horror movies, and to my surprise, this scratched that itch for me. The performances across the board of the Jimmy cult characters are all very good. The highlight being Jack O'Connell from Sinners, who plays the leader in this movie. They just all sell that unhinged, little over the top, apocalyptic psychopath stuff pretty well. Like, there still is a little bit of goofiness to them as a whole, but they are much more sinister and much more depraved than whatever we got at the end of that last movie. As a whole, the Jimmy cult stuff is a huge improvement to whatever they were trying to do at the end of 28 Years Later. Like, there's one scene in particular with the Jimmy cult in the barn, gets quite extreme. As a whole, the Bone Temple just captures the tone of the original movie so much better than 28 Years Later did. There are scenes with the infected in this movie that are played in a much more horror-like fashion. There's none of that weird, bizarre, out-of-place, stylistic slow-mo from 28 Years Later. Like, that belonged in Transformers by Michael Bay, not 28 Years. High key though, the first Michael Bay Transformers is pretty good. All I can say is, I thank my Lord Jesus Christ that there's none of that slow-mo in this movie. There are not too many scenes where the infected are the main focus in this movie. Anytime they are on screen, it is directed, edited, and shot like a horror movie. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ, because that slow-mo stuff does not belong in my 28 Years Later. I'll tell you that. There's also none of that weird boots stuff. Never belonged in 28 Years Later. Doesn't belong in the Bone Temple. Doesn't belong in any movie for that matter, if you ask me. Like, genuinely, this feels like the franchise is back to its roots. Like, genuinely, it's about the people. It's not about zombies. It's not about all that. Well, it is about zombies. Okay, let's rewind it. It's about zombies, but the main focus is about the characters. It's about how evil people can be despite, actual monsters existing in this universe. And that's what the Bone Temple gives us. Continuing on, the highlight of the movie has to be the stuff with Ralph Fiennes' character. Without getting into too much spoilers, his character is basically trying to find a cure for the infection. And to put it simply, it's engaging stuff. And it really should come as no surprise, since Ralph Fiennes is a great actor. I mean, he was great in The Menu. I mean, he's great in everything. He was never a problem in 28 Years Later. He wasn't one of the problems. It was the editing, it was the tone, it was the story, it was the writing. Not Ralph Fiennes' character in 28 Years Later. His character is just this weird, eccentric guy that's interesting to watch. In the Bone Temple, Ralph Fiennes' character continues to have an interesting relationship with the Alpha Zombie from the last movie. And to be honest, it's the bromance that I did not know that I needed in my life. I think some people might not like Ralph Fiennes' character and the Alpha Zombie's relationship in this movie, because it can get a little bit over the top and weird. Honestly, it gets a little bit stupid. I'll be honest. But personally, it clicked with me. Now, I think there are things in the Bone Temple that some people are not going to entirely enjoy. Like I said, the bromance between Ralph Phineas and the Alpha Zombie, which he calls Samson. Yes, he names the Alpha Zombie, and his name is Samson. It's a little weird. It can be a little stupid, but I'm going to call it the bromance of the year. Like, there are some scenes that with that relationship that just... Like, there are some scenes that just go a little over the top with that relationship, but overall, I thought their whole dynamic was quite interesting. The whole plotline of Ralph Phineas's character trying to understand this Alpha Zombie is just some of the most interesting stuff in the entire movie. Now, to continue on with some of the stuff some people might not like in this movie, one of those things being the Alpha Zombie is still completely overpowered in this movie for absolutely no reason. Like, he's still just snatching skulls from people's heads. Like, but the scenes with that stuff are just kind of reduced as a whole, so it's not as big of a problem. Could we do without that over-the-top stuff? Sure, but it's not as big of an issue as it was in 28 Years Later. I honestly don't completely understand why they want him to be so completely overpowered and strong. Why does he have to be so strong? It just doesn't make much sense. It doesn't fit the tone, but it is what it is. Another thing that people are either gonna love or hate is some of the music choices in this movie. This movie features mainstream music. Yes, this movie features mainstream music. Like, for example, there's like a couple 80s pop songs in this movie, like ones that I don't remember which one exactly, but it's one you'll recognize once you hear it. You're either gonna love this or you're gonna completely hate this decision in this movie. But there is one caveat to this. Ralph Phineas's character is playing these songs on a record player. Like, I won't lie, they do feel a little out of place at times, but the fact that he's playing these music physically in the world, in the setting itself, kind of gives it a pass in my opinion. Some people might not like that. That might not be a pass for them, but I thought it was okay for the most part. Your mileage may vary. There's one scene featuring Iron Maiden in the Bone Temple, and to put it lightly, it's absolute cinema. It's by far my favorite scene in the entire movie. Over the top, a little bit stupid, but low-key, I kind of loved it. As a whole, I think this movie is just vastly better than the previous one. Gets the tone better, gets the story better, the characters aren't as dumb, the performances are better across the board. Everything about this is just so much better. This is what I expected 28 Years Later to be, for the most part. For the most part. There is some stupid stuff, there is a little bit over-the-top goofiness, but for the most part, this is what I expected 28 Years Later to be. So, I'm gonna say it. I think Bone Temple might have done the impossible. It saved the franchise from that huge disappointment that was 28 Years Later. Like, that movie, I didn't think they could recover from that. That movie was just it wasn't good. It wasn't good, to put it lightly. It wasn't good. After finishing this movie, I consider it kind of a lifeboat for the franchise. Like, we all thought we were toasted after the 28 Years Later. That movie just, it wasn't it. It wasn't it. But with this, the wrongs have been righted, the tone is better, the characters are bleak. I mean, not the characters, the story is more bleak, the tone is more bleak, the characters are way better written. You know, it's just what 28 Years Later should have been. It's a more personal story, a more grounded story. There's none of immersive breaking editing or over-the-top action. It's what a zombie apocalyptic movie should be. Bleak and depressing. To put things simply, I think the Bone Temple just saved the franchise.